back, my happy hippity-dippity homeschooling homesteaders out there. Hope you all are doing well. Today is episode number 61, which means that you can find the show notes for today at homesteadsandhomeschools.com/061. It's very complicated, I know. I made it that way. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for checking us out, giving it a listen, and seeing what's going on. I don't know if you're stuck in your house, or if you're stuck in your county, or if you're stuck inside at night after 9 p.m. or dark, or whenever your curfew may be now, because we need curfews now as adults. But I hope you're all doing well out there. And if you're new to homeschooling, if this quarantine, this school shutdown thing has got your kids at home and you're doing some homeschooling, I hope you enjoy this. I hope you learn some things, and I hope you stick with it. I hope this when it's time for kids to go back to school, either at the end of this year or next year, you think twice and say, hey, you know what? Maybe that was really a good thing that I was doing. Maybe I got stuck into doing something positive, and you keep your kids home. Because that's the best thing you can do for them, I think, is as a parent. Step it up and be a parent. Be that the teacher that they need, that understands them the best. But I digress. And so today's guest, I mentioned 2 weeks ago when I had Mr. Mark Whitney on the show that I would be having Mr. John Monds on the show. And John is also running for the presidential nomination of the Libertarian Party. But we talked a bit about his experience as a homeschool dad. He's from Georgia as well. He lives a couple hours down the road from me. But I thought I'd have him on today, and we talked about his experience as well as where he sees the role of the federal government and even the state governments in education. So without further ado, let's go plant those liberty seeds with Mr. John Monds.
All the soldiers say it'll be alright. We may make it through the war if we make it through the night. For all the people they sing. What a lovely day, yeah, we won the war. May have lost 1 million men, but we got 1 million more. All the people they say.
My guest today is Mr. John Monds. If that name is familiar to you, it should be. He's running for the presidential nomination of the Libertarian Party, and he's down here in Georgia with me, a little further south, but down here as well. And I had him on today to talk a bit about homeschooling, because believe it or not, he's a homeschooling dad as well. So, John, thank you for coming on. I know you're a busy guy, and you've been all over. You were in Iowa and Alabama this weekend, so thanks for coming home and talking with me.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. And no, we're actually in Alabama and Nevada.
Nevada. Okay. I know there's so many of those things going on. I can't even follow them anymore. I don't know how you guys keep it straight, but, all right. So you're a homeschooling dad. Were you homeschooled growing up, or were you a public school kid, or what did you do?
No, I was not homeschooled. My educational background is early childhood. Went to private, I guess we consider daycare now, pre-kindergarten. My parents paid for, and then from first through third grade, I actually went to a private Lutheran school for African American students. After that, from 4th to 9th grade, I went to a Catholic school, and this was all in Michigan.
Okay.
That was mixed demographics there. And then I finished high school in a public high school in Florida, Pensacola area.
Okay.
And so I had a kind of varied experience growing up. And then I went to a private college, a historically Black college and university, Morehouse College. So that's been my educational background.
Good deal. Good deal. How was it? Did you enjoy public school as a kid, or was it one of those things you look back now and you're kind of like, eh?
Well, I'm thankful for having the opportunity to see, I guess, how it worked. And that was last 3 years of high school. But growing up in the private schools and just seeing just the differences in how education is done has been very helpful uh, to our family because my experiences kind of was driven me into homeschooling.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you notice a difference between like the private school and the public school, do you think? Or was it just, I mean, it was a time ago, but do you recall any of that?
I would say, some, and that being, I think the quality of education was a lot better. I think in private school, you have students uh, that care more because their parents care more because they're paying for their education out most of the time out of their pocket, and also teachers they seem to care more, really going the extra mile. My public school high school education, um, and that level is more about having fun. Of course, the
Yeah.
older you get, not being as serious. Um,
Yeah.
you
Of
know,
course.
type of environment. Um, so that was some of the differences that I noticed.
Cool. Now, when you got done with high school, you were wrapping up high school there. Was college one of those things that it was, preordained that you will be on your way to college in 6 months or whatever? Or was this something that kind of, you waffled a bit about, or how did that
No,
go?
no, I have an older siblings, one sister and one brother, and um, I think at one time we were all three in college at the same time. So I knew I wanted to go to college. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do or be. So I'd figured going to college might help. It might expose me to some different things. And so, yeah, I was and plus by that age, I was ready to get out of the house. I want to leave home, you know,
Yep.
um, and that was one way to do it. So, no, I was looking forward to going to college.
Cool. Good deal. Good deal. Um, so how long out of college before you had kids coming around then?
Oh, it was, let me see. My oldest son was born in 97. So I'd been out
Okay.
of college for 10 years before our first child was born, my wife and I.
Now, was homeschooling something that had come up prior to that? Or was this when did you guys make the decision to homeschool? Was it something you guys thought about earlier on, or is it?
Uh, I don't really remember. Um, but of course, when kids are young, um, my wife was a stay-at-home mom when we first got married. So for the first couple of years, it's just natural. We only had one income, so um, kind of, you're doing things with the kids, and they don't really need a lot of education. So I think as they began to get older, and then our second son was born 18 months later. Um, then I think we start having conversations about, what we might want to do.
Yeah. Did your kids ever go to public school, or did you make the decision before
Not
it
at
got to
all.
that point? Okay.
We've homeschooled them, the oldest three, from the day they were born until college. And we've got two college graduates, and one is a senior in college right now. And then we have a 13-year-old that's still at home.
Okay. So you got four of them then, I guess, if I
Yes,
can.
four kids, and like I said, three already in college, two out.
Good deal. Good deal. Did you, how did that go? Did you guys use a curriculum, or when you first got into the homeschooling side of things? I guess it was probably early 2000s. There's probably some stuff out there. It's
Mhm.
becoming a little more common.
Yes.
So what, did you guys have a curriculum that you used, or did you have friends that were homeschooling, or?
Well, we were very fortunate. Our two oldest kids were born in Michigan, and
Okay.
when we moved to Georgia, they were still pretty young. They were both under two. So when we got into homeschooling, we found a very awesome co-op that was based out of Thomasville, and a lot of the parents who had been doing homeschooling for a while were very helpful and kind of guiding us into what we were doing. So we started off with a Becca back then in the early grades. I think for all the kids, when like K through third, fourth grade, or something like that. We went to homeschooling conferences. Um, we joined the Homeschool Legal Defense Organization, and yeah. So starting off, it was mostly a Becca.
All right. Yeah, that one, the Homeschool Legal Defense organization or whatever it is. It's a good one. Everybody that's homeschooled should pay attention to for sure. But did you guys have any hang-ups in the beginning? I don't know, family or hesitations in your own conversations with your wife, or was it always just kind of full bore, let's do this thing?
No hang-ups, really. My wife and I, it was something we wanted to do. And because we moved, from Michigan, where the majority of our family is, it wasn't anybody saying you can or we shouldn't do this. Blah, blah. I think over the years, my mom every now and then would be like, well, if you get tired of homeschooling and, I'll be willing to help you put them in private school or something like that. But that never materialized. We never wanted to do that. So and we've been fortunate. It's worked out. And we didn't know the details of homeschooling, how you do the legal requirements. Every state is different and all that. But, we decided to just learn along the way, and it worked out great for us.
Yeah. I can't speak for some of the other states out there, but I feel like Georgia is fairly easy. It's not too bad in terms of what you have to do or follow or report back to the state. So it's but
I agree. Luckily, that's one thing that's easy to do.
Yeah, for sure. No, I've talked to a few people like up north, like New Englandy, and it's doesn't sound easy at all, but kind of discouraged. But so you all right, when you got to high school and stuff, or your kids did you guys still doing the co-op thing? What did you do for kind of exposure at that point and with your kids? Or
well, as they got older, the co-op offered classes taught by other parents. I thought was real cool. So and this started about middle school age, in which they could have take biology and physical science and chemistry from an actual doctor, one of the parents. And then we had another parent that had a legal background, but she loved math. So she would teach a lot of your geometries and other courses for that appropriate age level. So that worked very well. As far as socialization, our kids have been very active in programs, scouting, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and also 4-H. So I tell people all the time, because that's something that homeschoolers get. Well, how will your kids be socialized?
Yeah,
I say, well, public schooling is they learn all the wrong things in public school. I know I was exposed to a lot of stuff, or even when I went to private school, that you might not necessarily want your child to be exposed to or be in control of it. So that was never an issue for us. And being active in programs like Scouts and 4-H, they got a chance to meet other kids their age and also different ages. They weren't stuck just in their age group. They got a chance to learn leadership skills, different soft skills. So, that, also I think benefited us. And plus, when you homeschool, we like to travel or we're very busy. Mm-hmm. You can turn, your trips into learning. Everything's basically a learning adventure or learning opportunity. You don't have to be sitting in a classroom, to be educated. So, and we would do a lot of that, just going and traveling and learning about different places.
Yeah, it's interesting because, people that are in public school still, you go on vacation, you go places, But I feel like when you start homeschooling, there's something like in your brain that clicks, and everything kind of, you look at everything through a different lens of what can I learn here? What can I teach here? What can we do like, and get out of this more than just face value? It's, I know we've done that a lot more, now, but do you guys get up to visit family in Michigan then? Did you use that as a vacation sort of time?
Oh, yeah, we try to go up there at least once a year, and more just to visit family.
Yeah.
But when we went, you can go to different museums. My kids, of course, growing up in the South, they would go and we take them ice skating or skiing, doing things like that, and exposing them to just different things. Being exposed to the city versus living in the country, highways and byways and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. We, our family's up in like New England, and we've yet to go up during the winter. We always use it, August as our time to get away and get out of here. But they keep begging to go back up when it's snowing. And I keep telling them you're going to get frostbite, but, but, all right. So when you guys, you're getting through high school and you're moving on to college, how did that transition go? Because I know that's one that, I don't know if it depends on the college you go to, if it depends on, what did you do for a portfolio? How did you guys go through the application process, end of things?
Yeah, that was very interesting. Once again, having other parents that were kind of going through some of the same things was helpful. And luckily, another good program, that Georgia has is dual enrollment. So
yeah,
most of our kids, I think my oldest, because we were just learning about it, I think he started taking college level courses when he was about 15 or 16. So when he went off to college, he had already had about 30 hours of college credit that was able to transfer.
Now, so I think I'm pretty sure I understand, and I know some people probably out there don't. But so dual enrollment how's that work? I thought it was sophomore, junior year, you could start enrolling in like community college classes, or was it any college class that would take you, or?
Well, the way we approached it, we kind of knew where they were going to wind up going to college. So depending on what their area of study, you pretty much select a college that's going to fit where they can take classes that would be accepted by that college. So they were actually going to a 4-year college down here that matched very well with the colleges that they would get their degrees from. So, and we started a little bit later for our oldest child because we didn't know. But actually, our daughter, who's our third child, you just have to pass a test. And she started taking college level classes when she was about 14 or 15. She was in her 9th grade. So she started off when she started taking her 9th grade high school level classes. She also started doing some core classes at college level.
That's impressive.
And so going back, the question on the application process, I forget all the details. My wife handled a lot of that paperwork. But you just reach out to the college and ask them, hey, I have a homeschool student, and, what do you need from us? What do you accept? And you kind of gear the paperwork that you do, the transcript, you create a transcript for them, for their high school classes, and then they have one from college when they're doing the dual enrollment program. So once again, the co-op was very helpful in just researching, how to create a high school transcript. We did their diplomas. We printed their diplomas when they graduate from high school and things like that.
All right. Did you guys ever run into any pushback from colleges that either wanted things that were over the top or just weren't interested in a homeschool student?
No, we didn't have any problems. Like I said, we started the process early because
Hmm.
we kind of knew, where they want to go. So, and it happened to be both, my wife and my own alma mater. So that was kind of easy because we knew people at the school. We met people in admissions, and they were very helpful. So no problems for us.
Nice, good deal. It's always something that's like, along with like the whole, how you socialize your kids thing, that like the college one, what are you going to do after high school? You don't have a diploma, and no college wants you if you don't have a diploma. And so it's always curious to hear the different responses and I don't know, situations that people have found themselves in. So thank you. But all right. So did you guys, how different was it for your youngest one now? I think you said you have a daughter, younger daughter is like 13 or
The
14?
youngest child's a son.
Son,
Yeah, he's
okay.
13 now.
All right. So how was that coming? He's kind of not all on his own, but he's a little bit of an age gap there. Did he, you guys do things differently for him that you picked up for the first three, or was it,
Yeah, I would say yes, because once again, the beauty of homeschooling is you can kind of gear what you do to the child. So I think with the older three pretty much being all 18 months apart, um, we kind of they did things together and a lot more structure. We were really involved in the homeschool group for them. With our youngest, not so much.
okay.
We kind of left the homeschool group, and that was for various reasons too. They had some changes in leadership that kind of changed it. It just wasn't the same as when we had been there with the earlier kids. So we've kind of taken a little bit different path with our last child, and doing more things for him ourselves instead of relying on others.
Gotcha. How has that been? Has it been easy enough? Have you found enough resources and stuff out there? You feel like it's adequate?
Yeah. I mean, it's been going well, and we might one change might anticipate with him is the three older kids. They went off and started taking college courses a lot earlier, and two of them actually had their AA degrees when they graduated from high school. So they got their
Nice.
diplomas and their AA degrees. Um, I think with our youngest, since he's the last one, and once he's gone, a whole different thing. That maybe we won't, and we weren't necessarily rushing the other kids out of the
Right.
house or anything like that. But that's one thing, personally, I kind of anticipate. We have a good time together, and there's no need just rushing them out of the house. So we may just take a little bit longer and take a little bit slower path with him.
Yeah, I hear you a little bit. I have four, and man, they get old fast. It goes by quick. It really, really, really does. But so I'm curious, your older three sounded like they knew what they were doing when they went to college. They knew what they were going to pursue in regards to academic expertise, at least. How did you guys figure that out, or what kind of tools did you use to gauge where their interests would be?
Just talking with them, and that's another once again great thing about homeschooling is you actually spend time with your kids. Because
Imagine
the
that.
time is going to fly, away no matter what happens and what type of schooling you do. But at least with homeschooling, it's been great to actually spend time with your kids growing up. Um, so yeah, they kind of knew what direction they wanted to go in, so that made it easier. Well, we did assessments every year. That
Yeah,
was more
yeah.
so to kind of track, how well they were doing in comparison to other kids. Um, but we didn't try to pigeonhole them one way or another into what they wanted to do. They just generally kind of found their way.
It's impressive when the ability that children have to find their way with a little bit of guidance or a little bit of, somebody around the edge for them. But they can do it. It's there. They have that ability. And I don't know, I feel like putting them in public school where everything is kind of laid out in front of them takes that away from them. But, all right. So moving on. Well, before we move on, anything you want to, I don't know, share about homeschooling that we missed, or something that you regret that you did differently, or you wish you did differently, or anything like that?
No, I would say another thing about homeschooling, especially when you live in a rural area like we do, where there are not a lot of schooling options. For example, right now, every school in our local system is rated F by the state, and there's just not a whole lot of options out there. So when we think about that, we're so happy with the fact that we did homeschool. Because we, even just living in the community, we would interact or hear from other parents about how their kids were doing in schools, and basically how the schools were failing their kids. We were just glad that we took the opportunity to homeschool our kids. And one thing I have had, not all of the kids, I know for sure my daughter, she was like, thank you. They thank, she thanked us for homeschooling. It was funny because she had to take a test. I think it was the PSAT, and she had to take it at the local high school. And she came back and she was like, "Dad, those kids are crazy," And we laugh about it. And,
Yeah.
Or for example, we'll tell her, my youngest son, of course, he says, "Well, maybe I wouldn't mind going to public school. Maybe I'd give it a shot." And his siblings were like, "Nah, you don't want to do that."
Nice. Oh man. Yeah. Our older son went to kindergarten for a year, and he has no interest in going back. So I don't know. I think he maybe rubs off on the younger ones. We'll see as they get older. But all right. So you are, as I mentioned at the top here, you're running for presidential nomination of the Libertarian Party. I can never say it right. I can never string it together in the right order, but you are. And so I'm kind of curious, where do you see the role of the federal government in education?
Well, they shouldn't be involved at all, period. That's what I believe, and that's what I talk about. Even when when I ran for governor, I also ran for governor in Georgia back in 2010. And, I talked about giving more parents more control over their kids' education. I think that is the best way to go. But as far as the federal government, there's absolutely no need for the federal government to be involved in education at all. I talk about ending the Department of Education, ending the need for funding to go to Washington, D.C., and then have states like Georgia have to beg for educational funding back. And when they do get it, it's all kind of strings attached. And to me, that doesn't make sense. When you look at programs like No Child Left Behind, and I've probably talked to every superintendent in my community since we've been living here. And like most government programs, they so-called are well-intentioned, but they never seem to do what they are promised to do. And then after 4 or 5 years of that, you switch to a new program because the new person has a new direction, and you waste a lot of money, resources. Teachers have to be retrained, and you have to change curriculum, and none of it has led to any increase in scores, or like I say, a lot of these schools are still failing students. So it's a total waste. So I would say definitely on the federal level, get the government out of education, and on the state level as well.
Okay. All right. So how would you foresee that breaking down at the state level? Do you think it would turn more to the counties? I mean, who, it's always the big scary thing, What would I do? There's no school, but
it is scary because people aren't used to it currently.
Mhm.
But there was a time in the country's history when there were no public schools, and um, really the ones that have had trouble being educated or having access to educated were the ones that weren't allowed or it was illegal. Like my great grandparents were enslaved, so government and involvement in their education was prohibiting them from being educated. So, but there was a time in the country's history where were very literate. Um, and we didn't have compulsory education laws. We didn't have public schooling, but because my view and what I've learned is that, especially in the younger years, you don't need a whole lot to be able to teach your child how to read and do basic math.
Yeah.
So it's really an indictment on the system when you have kids that can go through 12 years of schooling and can barely read or not reading on grade level, or struggle to do very simple tasks. I mean, that is, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, it's a mess, especially when you go back and you look at the history of what the country was doing before and then after, and where we are now, and what all the money that we've poured into this education system that we have here, and all that it's given us back in return. But
And what it hasn't,
yeah, well, exactly, right, yeah.
But and people shouldn't. To me, one, I talk about you can't have a so-called free country without free people, and part of that is being able to educate your child as you see fit. Another part of that is the fact that government has no business in education,
Right.
And because when you look at what government does, it's gonna it doesn't create anything. So in order to so-called fund any program, it has to take money from people and a lot of times redistribute it to others.
Mm-hmm.
For example, and I talked to my kids about the fact that the property taxes that we pay, the bulk of it goes to the public education system, one that we will never use, haven't used, and then it's failing the students that they have in their charge.
Yeah.
So we taught all of our kids to read using one phonics book that we probably paid about $25 for. And all of our kids could read by the age of 4.
Nice.
And so it's not as expensive as it seems when you look at in Michigan, and even down here, I think on average it's about $800. It may have grown since then per year. That they say the cost of educating a child is, and to us, when you homeschool, when you hear that amount, it just blows your mind away because that what you've been able to do with only a fraction of that cost.
Yep. Yeah, you can make it as inexpensive or as expensive as you want, especially with all the free resources out there now. It's disgusting how much waste there is about in the public system. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I do appreciate you coming on and talking. Where can people go to find out more about you, or to see more of your policies or your?
They can go to Monds, MONDS 2020.com. That's the website, or on Facebook, it's Vote Monds. They can go there, and I forget what Twitter is. I think Twitter is also Monds 2020. So I'm constantly putting more information on the website, doing a redesign right now, but on Facebook, we have a lot of things that we post about the different positions that I'm taking in my campaign. But I just want to encourage anybody that's out there. I'm sure your audience is maybe people that are already homeschooling, but also maybe some that are thinking about it. I would encourage anybody that has the opportunity to at least try
Yeah.
and see how it works out for you. Reach out if you're struggling, reach out, find others in the movement and get help, get assistance. But if you really want to do it, you can do it. You can make a way to make it work. So that's my
Yeah, you definitely can. And homeschoolers are for the most part, a friendly bunch. And you're right, if you have questions, reach out, find people. They exist. They're out there. So I will put all the links to that stuff in the show notes, all your pages and whatnot. Maybe I'll link to some of the debates or whatever in there as well if you want to hear you talk some more. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate you having me on, and good luck to you, and appreciate the work you're doing.
So, this is my show, and I pick my guests. So, of course, I like my guests. Why would I pick them? I didn't like them. Anyway, I did. I enjoyed talking to John. He's a good fella out there, trying to make some positive change in the world. And really, go give him a look. Go check out his website. Follow him on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. All those links will be in the show notes for today's show, which I said at the top will be at homesteadsandhomeschools.com/061. Just a few items of business here before I let you all go run around in your COVID-infected world out there, whatever that may look like. If you're enjoying the show, subscribe, share. If this is your first time, thank you. Thank you for listening. And if it's not your first time, thank you for coming back. You always go to patreon.com/thelibertyhippie to support these shows, keep them coming out, keep me honest and productive, I suppose you could say. And go check out the Discord server. There'll be a link to that in the show notes, or you can go to homesteadsandhomeschools.com/discord, DISCORD, and there will be a short link in there that you can just go to and join the Discord. It's growing a little bit here and there, but the conversations are enjoyable. So go check that out. Come back next week, guys, and we'll have some more conversations about homesteading and freedom and liberty and what that means. And who knows how things will have changed in the next week. It will be drastic indeed, no doubt. So stay safe, wash your hands, wash your food, take care of the people around you. Don't make the older folks get out and go do their stuff. Bring things to them. Treat each other kindly and with respect. So I guess that's all for today. Remember, get out there, sow those seeds of liberty. We can all reap sheaves of freedom together.
I'm gonna ride Hudson's dream. I'm gonna ride Hudson's dream.